Hello and welcome to the Cat House. This is Mr. MeowsAlot, and this week I read A Universe from Nothing by Lawrence M. Krauss. Lawrence M. Krauss and his book Universe from Nothing is a physics book. Now, I didn't go through a lot of physics when I was in high school. I did one course, I think, but I didn't take it all the way. I did take biology and chemistry throughout high school, and I did fairly well at biology, not so much at chemistry. So this is a discipline that I'm not familiar with. However, it's not a long book. It's 200 pages, but it does go through basically the past century of the work that physicists have done with regards to the origins of the universe, Big Bang. It is very good for the layman, but it doesn't patronize you. Okay, so it does expect something of you. So it's not a quick read, but it is really fascinating. It is basically trying to establish for you that the Big Bang happened, that the universe is expanding and accelerating, that the universe is flat, and that most of the energy within the universe you cannot see. And this is why he's saying a universe from nothing. The reason the Big Bang was possible is that what we see as dead, empty space actually has what they've come to call dark energy and dark matter. And a great deal of the universe, something like only 5%, is tangible to us, to our senses, to our ability to observe that, such as ourselves. So the stars and everything like that make up only, the planets, etc., make up only like 5% of the universe. Everything else is stuff we just can't see. And this book goes over the past 100 years of how they've developed these theories and why these theories appear to be true. He does also go into, because he's a theoretical physicist, so he goes into discussing things like string theory, which he doesn't follow himself, but he talks about it and says how interesting it is and how it's brought about certain types of mathematics that has helped physics, etc. It's very, very interesting. It's difficult to get your head around it, especially if you're not well versed in physics. But it brings up a fascinating things to think about. Something in the afterword is by Richard Dawkins, and something that he mentions as well, which is interesting, and that Lawrence Krauss brings up in his book as pertinent, is that we live currently in a time where we're able to observe and make these calculations about how the universe is expanding, accelerating, and is flat, but in 1 trillion years we won't be able to, because it will have expanded and accelerated so quickly, leaving us behind, essentially, that we won't be able to observe any other galaxy except our own. And we can observe 400 billion galaxies at this point. This book just makes you feel so tiny in the grand scheme of things. But Lawrence Krauss's passion bleeds through this book. He makes you really excited about science. He's very humble in his own, contributions. Considering he seems to have really brought a lot to the table. But he really extols the contributions of everyone who came before him, and And if you've probably heard names like Hubble and Heisenberg and, well, Newton, but you don't know much about them. He talks about their contributions, and he says why they're important and how they built one on top of each other to get to the point where we are today, where we know so much about where we came from. And he does delve into the fact that we don't need a deity for the creation of the universe. We can know how it came about. And indeed, in the little question-answer part at the end of the book, he's asked if he's atheist, and he says he's actually anti-theist. Seemingly his answer is he's agnostic to the point where he can't prove that there's no God, but he's anti-theist in the way that he just doesn't want to live in a universe that has a God. And the book quite plainly explains that you don't need one. With regards to that, for anybody else interested, the book really made me think of this book I read here by Coyne, who explains exceptionally well why evolution is true, the title of the book. But again, for the layman, these books are wonderful for getting to the gist of these arguments and these concepts without treating you like a child. You have to come to the table with something in hand already. But they give you a base understanding. They give you a good historiography of what came before and how we've built upon our knowledge. And it really is a fascinating read. I fully recommend it. I understand from the book that there's lectures on YouTube from Lawrence Krauss that you can get, and I know of him through interviews that I've seen him do. He comes across as very passionate, as very keen in his field, and that kind of enthusiasm, it reminds me of sort of Neil deGrasse Tyson enthusiasm or Carl Sagan, but Lawrence Krauss is got a bit more attitude. He's got a nice cynicism that I appreciate, and a humor that is above board, I think, better than average, particularly in his field, which can be a little complicated. So he's able to really bring people into his fold and educate them. I bet he's a fantastic professor to have. That would be an interesting lecture. Anyways, A Universe from Nothing, Lawrence Krauss, well worth the read. For those into more of a pop culture-y thing, he, as I understand, he does a book called The Physics of Star Trek, which might be fun to see. I think he sort of explains what's possible, what's not possible. I'm not sure, but he does have probably a dozen books that he's written. That's just simply one of them. But for the geek in you, if you're keen on Star Trek, that might be something to look into. From the Cat House, this is Mr. MeowsAlot. Keep reading and take care.